Okay, so today I want to talk to you about building solid. So it's not something we really cover in Ceramics 1, but it's a really cool technique that you can use if you're trying to capture gestural movement or trying to just sculpt maybe something that has a lot of pieces that come out further, or things that you might not be able to do as well with coils or with slabs. It really frees you up to just sort of model, to just sort of attach clay to itself and see what you can get. You can be rough and gestural. You don't have to worry about slipping and scoring so long as you're using wet clay. And you just want to start to shape this and see what you get. Obviously, I don't have a specific thing that I'm making. I think I'm going to make a kind of a figure out of this. You can use the sculpting tools. I'm just going to mainly use my hands. But I want to show you how quickly you could get a form with solid building that maybe you would struggle to do another way. So there's a lot of artists that work very large that build solid and then meticulously hollow out their pieces. It lets them have these gestural, sweeping forms and movement to their pieces that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get. And I can just really treat this clay however I want, as long as it's going to stand up. A lot of people that work really large in this way put armatures through them, like put sticks and metal rods through them to hold it up, and then later they remove them and just fill in those places to help support it. So I can kind of quickly move through and start to create whatever my little heart desires. Within reason, obviously. You have to be able to, it has to be able to hold itself up. And you got to work with it wet, or else this technique isn't really going to work, because it's not going to stick down to itself otherwise. Kind of looks like Clayface from Batman right now. So notice that you can really get a lot of movement and detail. Like anything with clay, the marks you can get are gonna depend on the stage you're working at it. So when it's really wet, you can get these really soft marks. When it gets drier, you can get crisper marks. And so just keep in mind those stages when you're doing this, so that you can decide, okay, I'm gonna get the bulk of the main form done when it's wet, and then I'm going to let it dry some and do some detailing lines on this piece. And that's the thing about building solid, is generally the shaping and the detailing, unless it's incredibly incredibly detailed, is the faster part. And then you need to spend a decent amount of time, if it's intricate, hollowing it out. Because I need to cut this, and I'll have to cut this up into pieces. Once the outside is leather hard, I'm going to cut this up, and I'm going to start to hollow out each section. So that means I have to be very vigilant in how I let this dry. If there's thinner parts, I need to make sure those don't get too dry. Compared to the thicker parts, I need to really watch it and make sure I'm paying attention to that. So this is a technique you could implement if you like, depending on the shape and size of what you're trying to achieve, or the attitude of what you're trying to achieve. So I'm starting to have a little wonky figure here. My goal is to have some areas that are very smooth, some areas that are very rough, so I can show you hollowing out different types of surfaces. So I'm going to have some things that are far indented, so I have to go around them. I'm going to have some rough places, some sharp edges, and some soft edges, so that when we go to hollow this, I can show you those different things. So maybe I'll take a tool here and carve away to make some sharper edges, and I'll go back into it once it gets a little drier and do some more. So not a lot of fine detailed instructions for building solid when you're actually building the thing. But once we get to hollowing it out, you definitely have to think a lot about the big C word, which is compression. Compression is super, super important. The more it gets compressed, the stronger it is, the more likely it won't crack apart. You also need to make sure that your piece is as consistent in thickness as possible when you do this after it gets hollowed out. So the more inconsistent, the more likely it is to crack on you when it fires. Also, when it's really thick in places, it's just asking for trouble. So it can be a little bit challenging to hollow it out if it's very, very intricate and detailed. So I'm going to leave this little strange figure here. I might do some work on it later as it dries, and then I'll do another video of hollowing it out.